What's up, everybody? It's Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Dustin on the show as always. Good to have you, Dustin.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always, bro.
Absolutely. And we got Pablo back on the show. Pablo, getting to be a regular on the show. Good to have you back on, bro.
Yeah, it feels good to be a regular on the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast. I'm a big fan of the show and a big fan of you guys.
Absolutely. And we love it. We appreciate every time you come on. You always bring the great content and insight. And we got a lot to talk about this week, man, as a divisional round recap. You know, a fun weekend of playoffs. Let's start with Jags and Chiefs in Arrowhead. Um, I was hoping, I picked the Jags to win, just kind of hoping for an upset. Um, Dustin, what do you think of Patrick Mahomes suffering that high ankle sprain early in the first quarter or late in the first quarter? And how did you think that was going to affect the game with that early injury?
Oh, I've seen this before back when the Chiefs played, I believe, the Cleveland Browns, and Mahomes went out and Henny came in. But, if he didn't play in the second half, it would have been huge. But he came back in the second half, and hats off to Henny, man. Drove him 97 yards for a big touchdown.
I'm not taking my hat off to Henny. That pissed me off, man. If you're the Jacksonville defense, you got an opportunity to take the lead, right? You knocked the star quarterback out of the game. You got an opportunity to take the lead and put the pressure on the Chiefs. And you can't stop Chad Henne from going 98 yards. Pablo, what did you think? I mean, credit to
Yeah,
Chad Henne.
yeah. You said the defense obviously knocked Mahomes out. Did you think he was knocked out fairly or unfairly? Because many people thought that should have been a penalty.
No, that's just football. I didn't think there was anything dirty about it. You know, sometimes we see it all the time where a tackle and they accidentally land on the back of the ankle. I didn't think there was anything dirty there. What about you?
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought I just thought it was sneaky, but nothing to
Yeah,
it. I think obviously it was different last year. I think last year or the other year because
2 years.
2 years ago because
Yeah.
it was a concussion when they met the Browns. Obviously a high ankle sprain is not as serious. And obviously, it seems like Andy Reid wanted to pull Mahomes out of the game, and Mahomes kept insisting that he wanted to play, he didn't want to like
Mhm.
be put on the sidelines. I think the massive news is we have to wait and see if he practices today. Obviously, first day of practice. The big news is whether he'll be practicing or not, and that's basically the headlines that we're going to watch out for going into the weekend and the championship game. Obviously,
Yeah, it's gonna have big implications. You know, high ankle sprain that can linger. You know, Dustin, and a big game against a team that's had their number. The Bengals have beat the Chiefs 3 times in a row. They beat them
yeah,
last year in Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game. Advantage Bengals on Sunday, Dustin.
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, advantage a healthy Joe Burrow over an injured Patrick Mahomes for sure.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, the Bengals are a damn good football team, bro. They just went to Buffalo and dismantled the Bills,
yeah,
and you know, it's gonna be a good game. That's all I'm gonna say.
yeah.
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think just in terms of health. I think Mahomes will play even if he's like 75%. But I'm just thinking of the Chiefs have they need to not lose this one. They can't lose to the Bengals twice in a row, and obviously the championship game they just can't allow it to happen. I think for me, I think the Bills game was it going into the game. It kind of seems like the Bills don't know how to play in cold weather for a team that actually plays in cold weather, and they struggled a lot. Obviously, coming out basically straight out the gate, and I think it's just a case of the Chiefs have to make sure they don't lose again. The Bengals are a great team. No one's taking that away from the Bengals, but I think this time around the Chiefs will know that this is a team they can't underestimate, and obviously they'll need to have a game plan, make sure they protect Mahomes really well, and basically have to make sure that the Bengals don't basically go basically all out during basically in the first or second quarter. That's basically where they set the tone of the game and they just take it away from there.
Yeah. Um, and for the first time, a team is coming in cocky and confident in the Arrowhead. Arrowhead's supposed to be this scary place you don't want to play in the playoffs. But
Yeah.
post game, as that game was ending in Buffalo, Bengals players Eli Apple and Mike Hilton were seen saying, "We'll see y'all in Burrowhead." Dustin, what do you think of those comments? Going into Arrowhead, calling it Burrowhead, that's gonna, fire up the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only the Chiefs, but I think it fires up Patrick Mahomes. I
And
mean,
Andy Reid, all those guys.
to me, this is a big game that Patrick Mahomes needs. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think that you can lose to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row, and then also didn't they lose in the regular season this year also?
Yeah, they've lost 3 straight games. So this will be
Yes,
4 straight.
this is really, really big for Mahomes, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's a great test for him, right? Because Mahomes is supposed to be the next Tom Brady. Mahomes has been put up on this pedestal as the next great quarterback, and he needs to get. These are the games that you need to prove yourself to get the win. Otherwise, everyone's going to start talking about Joe Burrow. I'm actually fairly confident, bro. I'm all in on the Bengals. I'm actually I'm usually nervous against, picking against the Chiefs. I'm confident in this one. Give me Cincy, bro. Give me Cincy to go back to the Super Bowl. I think Joe Burrow's got that number. Something about it. And credit to the Bengals defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. Every playoffs, he seems to have that defense firing on all cylinders. What do you think, Pablo?
Yeah, I think the Bengals are the only AFC North team that can actually basically beat the Chiefs, because none of the other AFC North teams can basically
Yeah.
beat the Chiefs. And I think it's obviously the Bengals are a great team. I like it's crazy considering where they were when they drafted Joe Burrow, and no one expected them to be so good in such short time, and basically dominating the AFC North right now. But I'm just thinking in terms of the I think for me, I think the AFC Championship game this weekend will be better than the NFC Championship game. Obviously, I'm expecting a high-scoring game, although both defenses are. Maybe the Bengals defense is slightly better, but I'm just thinking in terms of the Chiefs basically will not allow the Bengals to win again. I don't think they will allow the Bengals to get to another Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs basically will have a good plan. I'm expecting them to try and stop Joe Burrow. I think obviously he also hurt the Bills with his legs as well, and obviously the Bengals also have a running game that's really good. I think they'll need to come up with a plan. Although Steve Spagnuolo basically he hasn't been the best of DCs in the league, although the Chiefs have been doing pretty well. I'm just thinking the Chiefs will basically have a good plan to take care of the Bengals this weekend. I'm not saying that it's basically that's just it. I'm banking on the Chiefs. I don't know why. I don't I have a feeling. I have a feeling. Like I said this basically going into Orchard Park against the Bills. I said the Bengals basically will win against the Bills. I'm thinking the Chiefs have to win this one, and I think they will.
It's a must win, right? And
Yeah.
otherwise, the narratives are going to be very clear all offseason. It's going to be talking about how the Bengals own the Chiefs. Um,
Yeah.
one guy that needs to step up, and if you remember last year's AFC Championship game, Joe Burrow escaped Chris Jones twice. Chris Jones had him in his grasp for a sack, and he escaped it and made a big play. Chris Jones has like a couple game where he hasn't had a sack. Chris
Yeah.
Jones needs to step up and be a force in this game. So this is going to be a fun one to watch. I agree. This one's probably going to be the best game, but also we've got in the NFC the Eagles and Giants. The Eagles and Niners. The Eagles blow out the Giants. Wasn't even close. Um, Dustin, what do you think of the Eagles in Philly? We've been talking about it all season long on the podcast about how you don't want to go into Philly in January, and it could be cold, and that fan base is going to be loud. And here comes Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, 7th-round pick, 7-0, is taking over.
Yeah.
How do you think Dustin, young guy, handles at the link in the NFC Championship game? The pressure doesn't get any higher than that.
No, it don't. But you know what? This kid has a team around him, a
Mhm.
very, very good football team around him. And all he has to do is stay turnover free and be consistent. I mean, get your weapons the ball, use McCaffrey out of the backfield, and I think that they go to Philly and win this game just because, man, the Niners are super talented.
Yeah, and they're not only talented on offense, which we is very well documented, but they're the number one defense in football too. Um, Pablo, I mean, the big test is can you slow down AJ Brown, keep him contained, don't let his legs destroy you in the open field, and then you got AJ Brown, it's a matchup nightmare. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. What do you think the keys are? I mean, that Niner defense is a tough test for Philly too.
Yeah, it seems like the Achilles heel for the Niners defense is the defensive backs. We know their defensive backs are not the best in the league. But we've also seen Fred Warner cover CD Lamb like he's basically a DB. So we know that they have that package in the middle of their defense, and they can use basically they can match up a linebacker on a wide receiver, and they can do that. But I agree with Dustin here. I think in terms of obviously they have the number one defense. They have the defensive player of the year in my opinion in Nick Bosa. Although he hasn't had a couple of sacks he hasn't had a sack in a couple of games, I think so. But I think the defense will step up. I think they have the better coaching. Obviously, Nick Sirianni this is second year as a head coach in the league. Obviously, getting to the NFC Championship game in his second year is a massive achievement. But Kyle Shanahan has been here, has done that, and obviously he has been here twice before with Jimmy G. Jimmy G is not Brock Purdy, and I think basically Purdy is the guy that just takes them over the top. Like obviously Dustin said, using CMC, Christian McCaffrey, obviously whoever's in the backfield, Elijah Mitchell, like they play really well. They had Jeff Wilson Jr. to start the year, and they haven't missed a beat. And I think in terms of defense, in terms of offense, I think defensively, the Eagles D line is massive. They're leading the league in sacks, but I just think the Niners will step up.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. The X factor is going to be can the Eagles stop the run and can the 49ers stop the run, right? These are both two great running teams. And if you can force either one of them to be one dimensional, you've got a huge advantage. And
Yeah, and to think of obviously AJ Brown was frustrated against the Giants. I'm not sure why.
yeah,
I'm not. Yeah, that's also something to consider. Like you don't want to go on a playoff run when there's a little bit of discord within the team.
yeah, when your best receiver. Yeah, I had forgotten about that, but he did not look happy. Even
Yeah,
Sirianni came over and said something to him, and it's like he kind of brushed him off. So
yeah.
that's
And I
fun.
say something real quick, Alex.
Yeah.
Man, we talk a lot about Shaq Leonard and Roquan Smith. When are we gonna start giving Fred Warner that credit, man? That guy is a baller.
Yeah, I mean, I almost thought it was implied. Like Fred Warner is an absolute beast. He's got that coverage skills, and he can get to the quarterback. He can do it all. He's a turnover machine. So big fan of
Yeah,
his.
and yeah, I
Yeah,
also think like in terms of the matchups that we have coming up this weekend, I think the Eagles and the Niners match each other like pretty well. They have two QBs that are in form right now. In terms of Titans, George Kittle basically had I think the catch of the year in the past week.
yeah,
Dallas Goddard I think basically had the game of the year, his game of the year in the past week as well. And
mhm,
it's only the Chiefs and the Bengals where you don't know what's going to happen because in terms of receivers, the Bengals have the better receivers. In terms of running backs, the Bengals have the better running backs. It's just a case of who like the AFC Championship game is the weird one. Like it's that's the game that you don't know what's going to happen. But the Niners and the Eagles, like you expect a tough battle, but mostly you edge out the Niners slightly. But for the Bengals and the Chiefs, basically anything can happen. Anything can happen, and obviously with Mahomes' health, you never know. I think that will be the more entertaining game for sure.
Yep. Niners Eagles is going to be very close, very hard fought, very physical, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Old school football. Give me the Niners by like a field goal, like game winning Robbie Gold kick, because Robbie's the man. He don't miss in
Yeah.
the playoffs. I was getting cocky in that Cowboys game. I was like, it was like a 50-yard. I'm like, automatic, like Rocky not missing. So if it comes down to a field goal, give me the Niners. Niners Bengals would be old school. That was the 1988 season Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I would love to see Niners Bengals. Um, Dustin, I mean, so real quick, Pablo, I know Justin Tucker is the most accurate kicker. He's got the leg. He's the man. Give me Robbie Gold in the playoffs, though. Robbie's my guy.
Yeah, it's cause we don't do enough to go on a playoff run. That's just the problem. Otherwise, he would have basically had the record. But Robbie Gold is gold in the playoffs, man. He doesn't miss the playoffs. He's always
Yeah.
automatic in the playoffs. But I'll say this. I think in terms of teams, I think the Niners. I don't know. I don't know why they're usually like we sleep on them like a lot to sleep on them. But in terms of teams, they should be like I think they have been top two in the league for a while. They just haven't had the quarterback. That's why they have not been in this conversation. But in terms of teams, I think they should be top two, and I think the Super Bowl. I think it's a repeat of Super Bowl 54, man. I think it's going to be like February 2020 all over again. I think it has to be Chiefs, Niners, and Niners actually getting one over this time around. I think that's just my bold prediction.
All right. Yeah, and it's coaching, right? Kyle Shanahan, we
Yeah.
know how great he is. And Dustin, how about D'Amico Ryans? You know, he's been the probably coordinator of the year. You know, he's got to be one of the hottest head coaching candidates. Right now, he's on the Broncos' radar like crazy. The job D'Amico Ryans has done with that Niners defense this year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, he's got him playing the number one defense, in the league. He's got studs on that team, and not only that, but his scheme. Like, if you watch him play schematically, it's a very well drawn up game, and he just knows how to play guys, when it matters.
Yeah. And then the big I mean, my prediction is Bengals Niners. Pablo's prediction is Chiefs Niners. What's your prediction, Dustin?
Ooh, man, I'm gonna go with Niners, but the AFC Championship game is tough. But you know what? I'm gonna go Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is hot right now. I think he feels like in his head he has a lot to prove.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
'cause-
Yeah. Yeah,
and
he
health.
does, and I think also in terms of he still has to think in terms of obviously no one is putting him in the conversation of like getting that a type of extension that Mahomes got, and obviously he's up for an extension really soon. He has to be thinking of that, and obviously getting to a Super Bowl and getting to another Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl before getting that extension will be massive for his career and basically whatever type of deal the Bengals will offer him. I think this is he will look at this as a massive opportunity, and obviously like credit to what Dustin just said. He is composed in the pocket. Basically nothing phases him, and obviously the noise at Arrowhead. Alex said before, it should be a place that is intimidating for QBs.
Yeah.
It doesn't phase Joe Burrow, and we'll see what goes down with that for sure.
Yeah. Dustin, so your Bills were your prediction all year long. You were riding with them, to win the Super Bowl. What did you think of the game in Buffalo in the snow? All signs pointing to home field advantage. The Bills should be able to get this win. What did you think about the way the season ended for the Bills? And man, it's got to be frustrating for Bills fans. They won a Super Bowl so bad, and they've had a contender like the last 3 years. And the last 2 years, they haven't been able to get back to the conference championship game. What do you think the Bills need to do to take that next step? And it's got to be so frustrating for their fans.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. I mean, I don't know if it was the emotions of Demar being inside the building,
Maybe
or
distracting them or what? Yeah.
yeah, but or the Bengals just came ready to play and they underestimated, you know, Cincy and Josh Allen. He's got to step up when it matters, but right now he just didn't.
Yeah, very frustrating. One thing I am glad is that we avoided that stupid neutral site AFC Championship game. I would, I don't want to see that. I like that it's in Arrowhead. Pablo, quickly, let's talk about your Ravens. I think you got some stuff you want to vent about the Ravens and how the offseason is going to go with Lamar.
Yeah. First of all, glad that Greg Roman is gone. No one is happier than I am that obviously we are looking for a new OC. Um, Roman basically was magic in 2019, and I have no idea how we pulled that one where basically Lamar Jackson led the league in passing touchdowns, and we were basically we basically ran the ball like no one has ever done in the league in the past maybe 3 years with Greg Roman. Um, but obviously, I'm excited to see who the Ravens bring in. Obviously, there are a couple of names out there, well, even looking at coordinators in college football. That's interesting. We're looking at Notre Dame offensive coordinators, basically Oklahoma State. Everyone is basically on the table. But I have to be patient and see who the Ravens bring in because we know there are problems at the head coaching position. Fans are getting frustrated with John Harbaugh. He hasn't handled the Lamar situation well in the past weeks or months since Lamar Jackson got injured, and it's a matter of who he brings in, and also it's a matter of the front office needs to basically bring in a number one wide receiver. At the moment, I'm thinking Terry McLaurin. I think, although he signed that extension last summer, I think he's basically the number one wide receiver that's out there that's actually good and that basically could move. I think all the other number one wide receivers are either like Mike Evans could move if Brady retires, but he's 29 years old. Like you might get like 2 3 years production off of him. DeAndre Hopkins is 30 years old. He'll turn 31 this year. You might get maybe 1 or 2 years of production off of him. I don't think that's smart. But also on the other hand, I'm thinking of the extension as well. They need to basically lock this man down. If I were the GM, I would basically put a 6 year deal on the table for him. The longer he stays in Baltimore, the better. The greater the chances of the Ravens actually winning a Super Bowl. We know the AFC North is crazy. Joe Burrow is in there. Deshaun Watson is in there. You have Kenny Pickett, who basically is not terrible. Like looking at his rookie year, so a lot of things need to happen basically this off season for the Ravens. And for me, I think the organization actually fail on two of those things. I think they will fail on one of either Lamar Jackson's extension or the number one wide receiver. I think we don't get one of those.
Man, see, if you are the Ravens, if you're a fan of the Ravens, and you look at that division, you got Pickett, who's on the way up. He's shown some signs. You got Deshaun Watson, who suddenly got the Browns feeling great. You got Joe Burrow, who's back-to-back AFC Championship game. If you're the Ravens, man, I don't think you have a choice. You have to pay Lamar. What are you going to do if you don't?
Yeah,
You
so I
want to
like
contend in that division, you need Lamar.
yeah, like the end of year press conference from obviously Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh, they said like their plan has always been to first of all win the division and then get a bye going into the playoffs. And we saw that in 2019, the only year basically with Greg Roman in the past, maybe like since Eric DeCosta has been the GM, the only year that they have achieved that, and obviously that basically crashed and burned immediately in the divisional round. I think they obviously they have a good vision, a good mission of where they want to be, where they want to go, but it's just the execution. They don't do it well. they don't put weapons around their QB. They don't pay him. They don't like. It's a lot of things that they do wrong, and you can't expect magic to happen out of anywhere, out of like thin air. So they need to get that fixed for sure.
And that's the thing. I mean, all that being said, 2 years in a row, if Lamar doesn't get hurt, they're 8-3, leading the division, contending. Dustin, what do you think on that? I mean, I don't think the Ravens have a choice. If you want to be competitive, you got to pay Lamar, right? What other option do you have?
Absolutely. I mean, he's your star player. He's top 5 quarterback in the league when healthy. You have to. I mean, you have no other choice. I don't think that they plan on going into this drafting a quarterback.
Yeah,
because
over.
that's not what they need when they have Lamar right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
first of all, good point, because if he doesn't get injured these last 2 years, I think they compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Yeah.
That
They're contenders in the AFC.
I mean, last year I think was their best chance because they had such a good defense behind them, a way better defense than what they had this year.
Until they added Roquan, though.
Yeah. Till they added him, yeah. Which was a big add, but yeah, you have to pay the man. I mean, he's your franchise, he's your future, he's your superstar. Give him the money.
yeah.
And then,
I think
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think Joy Taylor said something that actually like I really liked. She said something along the lines of, you basically work really hard and try to get some money and get a house, and like you like basically buy a house. And Lamar Jackson is basically the house that basically they just have to write a check for, and they don't want to buy the house. Like it's mind boggling to me. I also think obviously EDC said something along the lines of, obviously there'll be league owners meetings in Florida in March, during the spring. I think that's basically why they don't want to pay. Like obviously the owners will be super mad that basic if they hand Lamar Jackson a guaranteed contract, a fully guaranteed, or like $250 million guaranteed. And obviously the NFLPA is trying to speak of maybe collusion among the owners. 100% sure I think there's a collusion there, and it's a case of, if they don't pay him, I think someone else will pay him.
Exactly.
And they just have to say, F everyone else. This is our future. We're going to basically double down on our future, and this is what we're going to do. Give him the money, and basically Steve Bashardi has to be basically the boss here. He needs to say, this is our QB, this is where we are headed, this is what we want to do. And I also think the fact that the reason why Lamar Jackson has had injuries, the reason why players like J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, I think the best players that they have, the reason why those players have had injuries over the past couple of years is because they don't do enough to support the best players. So that's why you have the best players of extending, like a player like Rashad Bateman, obviously missing the entire season after he had a rookie year in which basically he missed like the first 5 or 6 games. I think it's because they don't put enough people around the best players. That's why the best players try to do too much and they end up getting hurt. They need to fix that.
Yeah, and you can't. I understand it's a ton of money, but that's the going rate. It's the same thing I said to Bears fans about Roquan. They didn't want to pay it. They're like, they look at the money and they say, "Man, it's so much money for a, blah blah blah, this position." I'm like, stop evaluating. This is my pet peeve. Stop evaluating a position and evaluate the talent. Evaluate the individual. And these guys are worth it. And the thing is, the money's always going up. It's the going rate. If the Browns didn't pay Deshaun Watson $230 million fully guaranteed, Lamar wouldn't be asking for it. It's just the way it works. So the Ravens need to pay him. And if they,
Real quick, I have a question for you guys.
yeah.
Obviously, yeah, we've spoken about the AJ Brown.
Oh, we're gonna have to table that question. We'll get Pablo back on here in a second. Dustin, what do you think of the Aaron Rodgers? What's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? Do you think this is finally the year he leaves Green Bay? It looks like they're talking about maybe trading him to the AFC, not the NFC, and the Jets are very interested and willing to offer enough to get Aaron Rodgers. They're, that quarterback desperate.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't really predict it because I thought last year he was gone officially.
Yeah.
But I think this is if there's a year where he goes, it's this year, and he has to go because if you want to win a championship, it looks like to me Green Bay is not trying to win a championship.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to go to a contender. I mean, go to somebody like New York that has a good defense. A team that can take you to the promised land. So
A real good defense, and then Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson and all these guys. I think Aaron Rodgers would love it in New York. You rocking the Aaron Rodgers gear, Pablo. What do you think about a potential trade, Aaron Rodgers to the Jets?
100% for it. 100% for it. I think this is basically why I'm wearing a Rogers jersey like backwards front, like front backwards. Like this is
You're doing
I
the
have the Packers.
RG3. Yeah,
Yeah,
the RG3.
100%, 100%. I think they should trade him. Rogers said on the obviously Pat McAfee show, he said something along the lines of, for him to come back, they need to do something basically with this contract. They need maybe to restructure it or maybe give him some more money. I'm not sure. He's supposed to get like $60 million in 2023. Like that amount of money is crazy for someone who basically hasn't won a Super Bowl in over a decade. I think in terms of players, he's way too much work for any front office to deal with. He basically wants everyone that the organization wants to get rid of to not leave the team. Like obviously players that are like Mercedes Lewis hasn't been great in the past maybe 3 years. He has been average or mid. A lot of players like the organization thinks of moving players, and Rogers says no. If you move players, maybe I won't play, or like maybe I'd request for a trade or something. I think is so much of a headache. The Packers would be better off without him. I know I'll get a lot of flack from Packers fans, but I think the organization will be much better off if they actually look to the future, look to rebuilding. Obviously, no one is thinking the Packers are going to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. Um, Now you're better off rolling with Jordan Love, getting a losing record, getting a high draft pick and drafting a QB who's actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, they gave it a good, healthy run this year and just missed out on the playoffs. I think that's the writing on the wall that it's time to move on and, see what you can get. Give Jordan Love his opportunity and draft a quarterback and, start looking to the future. Um,
Yeah,
Dustin, what about Tom Brady? All cards are on the table. He might retire, but I'm leaning, and I think a lot of people are leaning for the Raiders, who need a quarterback. Who would reunite Tom Brady with Josh McDaniels. He's had a lot of success with. You give him Devontae Smith or Devontae Adams. You give him Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, and you throw in potentially Gronk. I mean, that makes a pretty good Raiders team in a hurry, doesn't it?
yeah, I mean, absolutely. Raiders could use it, but where would Derek Carr go? I'm open in
Derek
Indy.
Carr, last I heard, Derek Carr was looking into the Commanders.
Oh, nice.
I mean,
yeah,
they're likely going to trade Derek Carr. He's gone, so he's going
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, 100% is gone. Obviously, you mentioned the Commanders, another shambolic organization. Um, I think Brady has like people are like I've had enough of him. I've seen him play for like 22 years. Maybe he wants to play for the 23rd season. It's enough. Like we've had enough. It's time for him to retire. I obviously you mentioned that possible Raiders team. Josh Jacobs is a free agent, so basically we have to wait and see what happens with that. Obviously, the Raiders are also another shambolic organization. They did not pick up his fifth-year option. Obviously, they're basically letting that first-round pick basically work out for free. And obviously, I'm hoping the Ravens actually go and get him because we need running backs. We've seen the health of the Ravens running backs; they're not usually healthy. I also think in terms of Gronk coming back, I'm not sure about it, Alex. Surely you don't believe Gronk will sit out a year and come back to play?
Man, I don't. Gronk is not one of those in the box kind of guys. He thinks outside
Yeah,
the box. He's gonna do what he wants, and if Gronk's not coming back, if Brady's not coming back, it's all hinged
yeah,
around Brady.
yeah,
And even if Gronk comes back, he's not gonna play a ton in the regular season. It's all about competing for a championship. And
yeah,
that's the thing, man. Why wouldn't the Raiders pay Josh Jacobs? It's like if Josh Jacobs hits the open market, there's going to be a bunch of teams trying to get him. And
yeah.
Josh Jacobs had a great year for the Raiders this year. Why wouldn't you pay him? I don't understand a lot of these teams being hesitant to pay their best players just
Yeah,
because of how much money it's going to cost. I mean, Dustin, wouldn't you pay Josh Jacobs?
Absolutely. I mean, he's top 5 best running back in the league numbers wise.
Yeah, like the Raiders are like, it's too much money. We're going to let him walk. Meanwhile, all these other teams are going to jump at it. And the same thing with Lamar. The Ravens are afraid to pay the big money, but you give Atlanta, Carolina, the Jets a chance to get Lamar, they jump at it. So I don't understand, one team's trash is another team's treasure, and I don't understand it. Like, evaluate
yeah,
talent and pay accordingly. It's the going rate. What are you going to do? You know?
yeah, yeah. I also think, well, obviously, like the Bucks, if Brady actually says he's not coming back, I think there'll also be in this conversation. And obviously, with Lamar Jackson, we have to wait what type of tag they actually give him, exclusive or non-exclusive. If it's obviously exclusive, it's obviously that's just basically, there's going to be no conversation at all in the off season. But I think it's just because it's the Ravens. I think it's going to be a non-exclusive franchise tag. I'm 100%, I'm 80%. I'm 80% sure it's going to be non-exclusive. And obviously, Lamar Jackson wants to play in Baltimore. He wants to be a Raven his entire life. Everyone basically wants him to be a Raven his entire life. We just don't know what's taking so long, and that's why this it's basically that's why it's dragging on. Like it's frustrating for fans. Mostly the league can't wrap their heads around it. Obviously the media as well. That's why this will drag out for some time.
It's going to be a crazy off season. Every year it is, man. And so many moving parts, and we're going to see what happens. I mean, Dustin, your Colts need a quarterback. I'm sure you would love to have Aaron Rodgers. My Bears need all the weapons in the world. We've been talking about DeAndre Hopkins and all these different guys that could potentially go to the Bears. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with these different teams and see what the future holds. But it's going to be a fun off season, and can't wait for these conference championship games coming up on Sunday either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go on.
Uh, the leading candidate in Indy right now is Dan Quinn. He's having his second interview today as we speak. So it's looking like maybe he could become the next head coach in Indianapolis.
Yeah, Dan Quinn would be a great hire. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Former head coach. He's got the experience, hell of a coordinator as well. So it's
Yeah.
going to be
Also,
interesting.
yeah, a bit of fresh air. Obviously, they've had an offensive-minded head coach for some time. I'm getting someone who's defensively minded. Could do some good for Indianapolis. Yeah, obviously, like you said, gassed for the championship games this coming weekend. And the question that I wanted to ask you guys before my internet did me dirty, um, in terms of number one wide receivers, like the Ravens should be shopping for a number one wide receiver. We don't know if they are. Obviously, they say they're considering all options that are out there in free agency or trades or maybe in the draft. I'm not entirely optimistic about the draft because having the 22nd overall pick in the first round, unless you trade up, which is something the Ravens don't usually do, unless you trade up, you're probably not going to get a number one wide receiver. But which wide receiver would you like to see on the Ravens? Because like I can't wrap my head around anyone else that's not Terry McLaurin.
Honestly, who I think could be a great matchup with Lamar, and I'd love to see it, is DeAndre Hopkins. I know that he's getting older, but he hasn't played a lot the last couple of years, so he should be relatively fresh. And
Mm-hmm.
man, when I did see him play this year, he's still got some of the best
Yeah,
hands in football. We don't
yeah,
always talk about it, but his catch radius is incredible. And I would love to see Lamar and D Hop. I mean, you think about he's one of those guys you can just throw it deep. When there's double coverage, it don't matter. DeAndre Hopkins likely going to be down with it. What do you think, Dustin?
You know what, man? So after the game on Sunday between the Bills and the Bengals, there was a lot of. I don't know if anybody's seen what Stephon Diggs did, but you know what, man? Diggs would look good in a Ravens uniform.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I like the trying to create some drama there with that one too.
Yeah, 100%. That was nice. That was nice. Yeah, I love both. I love both players. Obviously, D Hop, obviously the one of the architects of the Hail Mary, a couple of years back, against the Bills. Obviously Diggs as well, another frustrating playoff run for him. Hopefully, fingers crossed we get one. Like fingers crossed, like I can't go into 2023 looking basically at our receiver room and going like, this is not going to cut it. So hopefully we get one.
Yeah,
But
you don't want Mark Andrews being your wide receiver one again.
Yeah, that's a vibe. Yeah, that's yeah. It's not that's not what we want for sure.
there's some pretty good studs in this draft. I mean, I think if Jackson Smith and Jigma was the fall, go after him.
That's the thing,
22.
man. Is every year, so we talk about it, the draft, but every year we see studs fall, whether it's DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Debo Samuel, George Pickens, guys that should be first round picks that fall to the second and third. And I can never wrap my head around it. Every draft, I'm like screaming, draft this guy, draft this guy. And then they fall. And it's like, so if you play your cards right and truly, see the potential, there are some guys to be had late first round, second round.
Yeah. Hopefully that happens. Like hopefully that happens. But the thing with the way the Ravens draft, they always go for the best player on the board. Like we no one planned the Ravens getting a safety in the first round in last year. We took Kyle Hamilton because he was the best player available. I think at 22nd, even if we have a good wide receiver on the board, they'll pick a defensive lineman who's the best player available. I think that's it's frustrating, but it is what it is. I think it varies for every NFL fan. I think every NFL fan knows their team better than basically the entire league, and every NFL fan is frustrated at some level with their team. So I think that's basically it. I think that's how it goes. Just in the league, that's how it goes.
Hey,
Well,
and by the way, Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, just saying,
Yeah,
best safety rating
he's
out
a
of a
baller.
rookie.
Yeah. Yeah,
so yeah,
funny thing, he hasn't got a defensive rookie of the year nomination. I think Tariq Woolen is up there, Aiden Hutchinson and someone else, Sauce Gardner. So that's basically the rookies that stood out. Kyle Hamilton didn't, but he basically he's had a solid year. He's had one of, I think, for in terms of rookies, he has been impressive, and obviously he flew under the radar.
yep.
Absolutely. And, he played in South Bend, Indiana, so they're not going to give no credit to the fella that wore blue and gold. So we are okay, though.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, can't wait for this weekend. Great football, and we got a big long off season with hopefully our teams improve and come into next year ready to go. But can't wait to watch Bengals Chiefs in Arrowhead or Burrowhead, however you want to say it, and then Niners Eagles at the Link in Philly. Both games are going to be awesome. Thanks, Pablo, for coming on once again. You always bring the heat, and it's always a blast having you on the show. Dustin, good shit as always. And we'll be back next week to talk some Super Bowl and recap the conference championship. But good shit, guys. Have a great week and peace out.